Right. Well, tonight we have gone over the life of the Apostle Paul some time ago. We then looked at the life of Moses, and I was done with the life of kind of thing. We had done an Old Testament and a New Testament person, and Brenda Peak was like, "Oh, please do the life of Joseph." Well, I don't regularly take requests generally, so I'll file it back there. And I said, well, we'll see, and looked at it, because really it's a little backwards. If we were going to do it that way, you studied Joseph first and then did Moses. But I think I may see where God was going with this. But it's Brenda's fault while we're here with the life. with the life of Moses. We will not, I can tell you, it will not take us, even though this is a long swath of the book of Genesis. I do not foresee that it will take us quite as long as it has for the others to go through that. But we're going to take as long as we have. It's hard to plan out the whole thing at the beginning. I've got a pretty good road map. But it is, if you've probably studied some things about Joseph before, again, I want to caution you, this is not a study of the book of Genesis. So there are going to be things we're going to miss in there. But I put out on Facebook and sent it to folks that if you're interested in really diving into this, you want to read Genesis 37 through the end. All right, taking a look at that entire story. You want to look back before and read. It's a lot of reading out there in the book of Genesis for you to dive into this. And we will go through Genesis as a guide, looking at Joseph's life. But tonight we're going to look just more at an introduction and see how the story of Joseph really he is one of the most impactful, I think I can say, biblical characters that we have. A lot of people look and see a lot of similarities between Joseph and Jesus and what Jesus ultimately did to save the world, and how Joseph saved the people of God during that time. So it teaches us about faith. It teaches us about trust. It teaches us about how God is very powerful in times of suffering, and God is there. And, we're going through times of suffering now, and we always seem to go through times of suffering, so you need to understand how God's provision is always there. So we're going to take a look here in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, because the story you have to begin, and we did this with Moses as well, you have to begin at least looking at Genesis chapter 12, where all of these things about the people of God, the Jews, the Israelites, the Hebrews, whatever you're looking to call them, how it all began. So in Genesis 12, verses 1, 2, and 3, it says, "The Lord had said to Abram, 'Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you.'" So this is God speaking to Abraham about this Abrahamic covenant that we call it. You can turn and look in Genesis 15, and you can see where that whole covenant is ratified, if you will. But this is where God's calling Abraham out of the place where he's living and telling him, "I'm going to establish a nation from your descendants." And you can see that there are two promises, basic promises that God makes in the passage. Number one, God says he's going to make Abram into a great nation. He's going to make his name great. Number two, that all the nations of the earth will be blessed by him and by his descendants. So as you look at this life of Joseph, yes, he is the main character, but it's really going to stem from what God is doing with the Jewish people. As I told y'all before, there is only one nation on earth that you can look at and see God's timetable, if you will. One nation that dictates how things are going when it comes to God's plan. And that's Israel. We'd love to say as Americans, oh, it's Americans. We are the apple of God's eye. We're the best nation ever. We're all of these things. No, Israel has always been, will always be that nation that you can look to, that you can see that that's the center of what God is doing in the world. And I know some people, oh, that's crazy. I've been there. I was there last year, and this is the most contested piece of land that is on this rock. Everybody wants this land. Every religious group, almost, the major religions, Christians, Jews, Muslims, we lay claim to this tiny little nation. And within that nation, the tiny little spot, what is it? What's the Temple Mount square footage, Jim? 30, what is it? You know it better than I do. Yeah. 37 acres, what I thought. 37 acres is where it's all at, right there, really and truly. I mean, the whole city of Jerusalem. But that 37 acres, if you went up there now, that you could start World War III over that. Nobody cares about some field in Macon, you know. The Vatican maybe not even as well. So you think, I've always, just think secularly about it. Just think logically. Why? Why the Jews? Why? Just take the Bible, close it, put it on the table. Let's not say that the Bible has brainwashed us. Just look at what's happened in human history. Why have every power that's ever been, Egyptians, Babylonians, Persians, the Medes, the Romans, the Greeks, everybody, why they always tried to do something to the Jews? This tiny little nation, these tiny little supposedly insignificant people. And even today, I mean, everybody just wants to wipe them out, and they can't seem to do it. And tons of people have tried. And I've repeated myself over and over. You've got to think about this. Well, there's got to be something. What is it? What is it? It's got to be a little bit more than location, which we've talked about before. It is a great location for back when the trade routes had to go through there. But you can tell there seems to scream out at people that there's something deeper here. There's something really, really religious about this land. And it absolutely is. And the Bible centers all around all of this. And the whole point of Joseph's story, it would not have had to happen this way if Genesis 12, 1 through 3 hadn't been said. Okay? There would be no reason for all of this, of what God's going to do. So there's a plan, there's a purpose. And is it possible for anybody to stop God's plan? This is not a question in your notes.
No. Nothing can thwart God's plans.
But we certainly try.
Yes.
Certainly try. And so you need to kind of remember that. Take a look at a couple of things. Most scholars, not all, believe that Abraham was born somewhere around 2166 BC. What happened before? Well, what was happening, before Abraham's time? That's 2166 years roughly, even if you put him into the 19s, which is where other people may date Abraham's birth. Still roughly 2,000 years of human history were going on before Abraham comes on the scene, so there's no Abrahamic covenant. What was taking place with the people of God, or God's people, or God's plan for 2,000 years?
Sin,
Okay?
idol worship, just and the flood happened before Abraham. So it was a very sinful nation, I think, at that time.
Nation, there was no nation. That's the point.
Land.
Okay, there was a land. Okay, so you're talking about the geography. Yeah, the land was there. But I'm talking about now, look, God creates Adam and Eve, right? First two people. They have children and all that kind of stuff, right? What was happening was there a people of God prior to Abraham's time? Jim, you said no?
Did he say no, there wasn't
Yeah.
before Abraham?
Uh-huh.
I don't think so.
What were there people worshiping God prior to Abraham? Okay. So there were some kind of believers in Yahweh,
Yes.
Elohim, Adonai, prior to Abraham, right? Y'all with me? You agree with me, Daniel, to this point? There was not a people, he said, these are my chosen people, but there were people that were following God prior to Abraham. Okay. And there was a lot of people not following God before Abraham and after. Okay. But there, you got to look at what had taken place. But prior to Abraham, you had Genesis chapter 3 where disobedience and rebellion took place when the fall happened. All right. And God's perfect creations turned upside down 3 chapters into the Bible. All right. Now, it only took 3 more chapters, a whole lot longer in years, but 3 more chapters in Genesis chapter 6 for the world to get so bad that he destroyed it with a worldwide flood. All right. And me and Daniel were debating in my office this afternoon some nuances that I'm not going to bring up today about Genesis chapter 6, because that would take us forever to try to flesh out all of that stuff. But why did the flood happen? He was upset, huh?
We thought the world needed a fresh start. Jump-start and started again, if you will.
So he killed every person on the planet, everything that wasn't on the ark, save 8 humans and 2 of every animal, every kind, I need to say, of animal that Moses had on the ark. I mean, Moses. That's the joke I used to tell, and now see if people can hear it, and I said it myself, that Noah took on the ark. So he did that because the world was so bad. Well, how long did it take the world to get right back bad after the flood? About as soon as Noah got off the ark.
And got drunk. And had children by his daughters.
Was it worth it? Jim?
I got interested in this today, and a lot of my study Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, before each chapter, he has a timeline. And that gives credence to this. I don't know if it's true, but it's just right. He says that the flood happened back in 5000 BC. And he says, counting the generations or the patriarchs, it was either 900 and so 900. He says that when you go back, creation happened somewhere over 6,000 years. So if that's the case, if he's right,
What?
from creation all the way to Abraham, 4,000 years went by.
What did you say about creation in the 6,000 years? I want to make sure I didn't hear what you were not saying.
He doesn't say creation is X is like
You mean 6,000 BC?
over six. Closest I could get what he said was 6,600 BC.
You wasn't saying that it took 6,000 years.
No,
I say, okay. Yeah.
you put in your notes about Abraham was born 2166.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And if you subtract that
Yeah.
from what Riley said, it was like a span of 4,000
Yeah.
years went by.
Yeah. There's a lot, I understand what you're saying. There's a lot of people that say that if you're trying to, it's hard to tell exactly when creation was, but around about what a lot of people have looked at is what agree with Ryrie about 6,000. It would have been 6,000 BC. So yes, you're talking about 4,000 years of time between creation, Adam and Eve, and Abraham's birth. And it would have, and I don't know how you slice it. You know, we do not know, like the timelines that usually are there, they do not date creation. And I was trying to go back, and even in my Bible agrees with the 2166 and the timeline that they have. They don't date creation. They say that is undated.
He agrees with your date. He said
Yeah, but when they start looking at the 2500 BC with the Egyptians, and that's how they start looking. Anyway, when you're looking at, there's been thousands of years, okay, thousands of years between creation and Abraham, and things have been going on. We sometimes look at this stuff because it's in biblical chapters and it's happening like that, and we know that that's not true. But when you think about the flood and you think about all that, I'm looking and going, okay, God, you destroyed the world, and got rid of all the sin. Hey, why don't we try that again? Because, well, look, I'm not going to flesh this out tonight because it's not really a part of this Bible study. But when you start looking at this, the covenant was needed because the creation had been turned upside down, right? All of this sin, all of these problems, and God is plucking out a people that ultimately is going to birth the Messiah that's going to save the world. But what was the point of the flood then? What good did that flood do? Killed all those people, 8 folks saved, and they turn around and started being right bad again. There's a lot of, we're not going to go through it all right now. There's a lot of, if there, you could have been a fly on the wall in my office earlier, there's a bunch of stuff as you can bounce back and debate all of this kind of stuff. I like you to think about those kind of things and see what has God been doing? What's the plan? What is his overall purpose? I'm just going to submit to you in this way. When you look at what was happening during the flood time, all right, is that you had Genesis chapter 5 where you had the genealogy, okay, in Genesis 5. It's what usually stops people from reading the Bible cover to cover because they start to getting into the begot, he's the father of this and that. 5 chapters in and they say, well, I'm going to skip that. All right, Genesis 6 is when the flood happens, and it says that the sons of God, were getting with the daughters of men, and in those days there were Nephilim, and there's all kinds of things that people, I've taught on this before. What I look at is that here, that God has he's been a real stickler the whole time that there's a line. There's a genealogy that everything has to go through. Okay, and that is very important, and it's very important today. Think about what we talked about with Moses. Is every Levite a priest? Only the Levites that come through Aaron's line from Levi. The genealogies in the Bible are very, very, very important. All right, Jesus is tracked right on back through those genealogies, and it couldn't branch over here. It had to go through the exact place God wanted it to go to. And you see across all of human history that we have in the Bible, God is making sure no matter what these people do, all right, no matter what happens, there always has been a group of believers. There's been these folks. If you look at Adam and his sons, Seth is the son that you're going to track everything back to. Not all the other sons, okay? It's going to go through Seth. That's through Seth's line is where we get Jesus from, okay? And Noah, Abraham, all of those people. Very important. You say, well, look at these Jews. Look what all they're doing. Why did God save Noah and those 8 people? Had to be this line that was going to go. These were the ones. These were the people. None of them have ever been perfect. Okay, but they've been the chosen people. Now what we're saying is God is going to choose a whole group of them, and he's going to make a nation out of these people. That's been different. There has always been people, but now he's going to make a nation out of them, and they are going to track their lineage back through Abraham. God does say in Genesis 9:11 that he is not going to destroy the world with a worldwide flood again. He didn't promise he wouldn't do it by fire, though, did he? Because that's what's going to happen the next time. So there you have the Abrahamic covenant that's coming in. It's so important that you understand, like I said, how important God's word is when he says, this is what I'm going to do. He tells Abraham that he is going to make his name great. He's going to make him into a great nation. They're going to bless people, and the people that come against them are going to be cursed. That is in effect today. All right, that last verse in Genesis 12:3, where it says, I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you. You gotta be careful, folks. if you start to be a country that may be heaping curses. Now, what does that mean? There's a lot of ambiguity on what the heaping curses could mean. Because let me just tell you straight out, I don't believe that Genesis 12:3 means that Israel can call us up and tell us we have to give them a blank check for everything they want. I don't believe that that's true. Okay, that the United States does not always, nor does any other country, have to be at Israel's behest in anything that they want. But if you did start turning and cursing Israel in some way, I'd be a little afraid of that. Okay, that hasn't worked out for any nation that's ever tried that in human history. So let's just not even think Genesis 12:3 is wrong. Just think about the places that's tried to come against Israel, and they have fallen by the wayside. I don't think America ought to try that. All right, and I think religiously you have something to stand on when verse 3 is there, because God, He's moved more than any mountain for these people, and He's continuing to do that today. So, Joseph's birth. Genesis chapter 30, verses 22 through 24 says, Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph and said, May the Lord add to me another son. So Joseph, if you're looking at the timeline that I was giving you for Abraham, people would agree that Joseph was born somewhere around 1914 BC and born to Jacob and Rachel. Now, because of the size of it, I put a chart on the back of your notes, and this gives you a little picture idea of the Abrahamic line. Here you have Abraham who had Isaac, right? And Isaac had Jacob. God changed his name to Israel. So we have then Jacob's sons make up the 12 tribes of Israel. And Joseph is over on the right-hand side, number 11. And you can see that you have Leah, one of Jacob's wives, and Rachel. Now, this is where you kind of need to go back and look at the other chapters in Genesis to see what was happening. What was happening in this family, in Jacob's family? Was everything just wonderful and silver spoons in their mouth and everybody loved everybody and it was marvelous, no controversies?
Leah and Jacob were having problems because...
Well, let's go back before that. I'm going to go back before that. Abraham has Isaac. Is Isaac Abraham's first son? No. Ishmael was Ishmael was Abraham's first son through Hagar, right? But through all the circumstances of the scriptures and what had taken place there, they had a promised son, all right, Isaac, and he's the one that the line is going to continue through, not Ishmael. Whole nother issues there. Abraham and Sarah and them were not able to have children, so let's go find another way to have a kid, and they do, and that's not where God wants to send the line. So Isaac, he has a couple of kids, right? He has Isaac?
He has...
Yeah. Now, he may have, I hadn't counted all of them, but
I think he had 10.
Yeah, but Isaac had Jacob and Esau, right? All right, we say Jacob and Esau, but shouldn't it be Esau and Jacob?
Yes.
All right, because what happened there? Yeah, Esau was supposed to have the birthright, and there along with the mama, they go in there and trick old Isaac, and Jacob ends up stealing, all right, the birthright from Esau. Didn't they have some trouble even in the womb, or coming out or all that kind of stuff? They've had trouble all trying to grab his foot. I mean, all these things in the Bible here. And so you have Jacob stealing the birthright from Esau. Esau's really upset about that, and so Jacob flees, all right? Jacob flees to his, was it his cousin, uncle? Uncle, right? I'm messing myself up. Jacob is fleeing to his uncle Laban, right? He goes to his house, and he sees Rachel. And like any man, he goes, whoo, I like her. And like any person, when you're trying to negotiate something, you never want somebody to know you're hungry. Because Laban goes, you want her, do you? Well, I'll tell you what you do. You work for me for 7 years, and you can have her. And in the meantime, I'll give you my daughter Leah. You can have her. So that occurs. He works for him. You know that story. And ends up he has both Leah and Rachel. But Jacob always loved Rachel more. All right. And then you had this problem. Leah is giving him sons. She's fertile. Rachel is not. She's barren. That causes a little grief, trouble. But now you get to Genesis 30, what we just read earlier, okay? And let's look back at it, Joe, if you will. Verse 22. It says, then God remembered Rachel. Okay, so after all of these kids that Leah's had and her handmaids have had, then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and he enabled her to conceive, and then she has Joseph. Look what she calls him. You know, when it says in the scripture that she said, God's taken away my disgrace, she named him Joseph and said, may the Lord add to me another son. So she wanted another son as well. She will have another son. That son will be Benjamin. All right. But you have Jacob showing immense amount of favoritism, immense amount of love and all of that towards Rachel. Well, we're going to see that is going to flow right on in to some issues for his children. All right. So we do not pick up anything with Joseph from right here when he's born until he's 17 years old. All right. So we have 17 years go by, and we get to Genesis 37. All right. And we're going to look at verses 1 through 11 tonight. It says, Jacob lived in a land where his father had stayed in the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel, this is Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brother said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father, as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So, just take, there's a lot to say about this, but taking a look at verse 1, you see Jacob, he's living with his family where? In the land of Canaan. What's that? What do we call that? The promised land. We just studied Moses. Were they in the land of Canaan? No, they wasn't. They were in the land of Egypt. 400 years plus. Then they took 40 years to try to get to Canaan. They were in Canaan at some point. You know, they had been there. Abraham, you know, to study Abraham. Abraham left where he was and followed God and went there, and they sat up, and Abraham had been there, and Isaac had been there, and Jacob had been there. They were there. They were in the promised land. They were in Eden at one time too. Okay, kicked out of there. Every time we get a nice place to live, we mess it up. You know, not good tenants. But I want to make that point. That's where they are currently. And it's good to look back because you've seen all the mess that Moses and them went through to get back. You go, what was going on? Anyway, verse 2, you see that Joseph is 17. And what's he doing? What's his occupation at this particular moment in time? He's maybe not by his own volition did he want to be, but he happened to be a younger brother, so he had to tend to his brother's sheep out there, and somehow or another, it tells you, when you have Bilhah and Zilpah here, and you see them in that family tree, that these ladies are Leah and Rachel's servants. But anyway, looking at what they were doing, he goes and gives his father a bad report about his other brothers. It tells us there. What was the problem? What did he go tell Jacob? Don't bother looking in your Bible because it isn't there. Huh? No, I don't think he went and told them those brothers hated him. I think they hated him because he went and told them whatever. Huh? Oh, I think that's probably had to be the case. We don't know exactly what they were doing. But see, they probably were out there doing all kind of manner of things that they were not supposed to be doing, that they never would have done in Jacob's presence. Joseph happened to find out about it, and he goes and tattles on his brothers. Any of y'all been a younger sibling? I've always been an older sibling. I don't like it when they tattle on me. You know, tattling may be right, but it always don't put you in a good place with the people that you tattled on. And so we don't know exactly what he went back, but it probably wasn't that whole. It wasn't crazy. It was just sibling stuff. I don't know. We don't know exactly what it was, but verse 3 tells us a whole lot here. And that tells us that Jacob loved Joseph more than his other sons, doesn't it? There are a lot of parents in here. And I know we say, oh, we don't have favorites. No, that's not really true, y'all. There are, and I can tell you that because I am a father of 3, and I can say I do not love my children any different, but you don't love all your kids the same. You don't treat them all. You can say, well, yes, I do. It's semantics that you're going to get in when you start that. If you treat all your children the same, you're not a good parent because not all kids are the same. I would love Eli to go fishing. Eli don't want to go fishing. All right? You can't make your kids what the other one wants to be or what you want them to be. All the kids are different and all that. So it may appear to some other person that you like that because there may be a kid that identifies with you and another kid that identifies over here. It may seem like at some time that those kids are favorites. So in a sense, every parent probably has a child that you identify with a little bit more than the others because they're a little bit more like you. All right? Now, that's one thing. I think this is saying more than that. Do you agree with me? That Jacob isn't just identifying with Joseph a little more. He says he loves him more, and he gave him this ornate robe. Back then, you always had that outer garment. That outer garment was very, very important. It showed your status, that you could even give that up for a loan collateral. Okay? Now, they would have probably had drab, just regular color ones. He had a coat of many colors, right? And it's such that his treatment of Joseph has made the other kids really take notice. And that's very much unhealthy, okay? I can tell you with my kids, I treat them different because they're different. I don't love them any different than I love the others, but they're treated differently. But none of them feel like I love the other one more than I love that particular one. And I think that just is what was happening with Jacob. Yes?
I think it's good to know that the use of colors like that back in those days was extremely expensive.
Yeah.
So that coat that he gave him was very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Which added more.
Oh yeah, I mean it was visually. I mean it was a big sign. It was what he would wear every day. I read some commentaries that said that most of them would have been about knee length. His probably was a little bit longer. I'm not sure about that, but I know that back then colors. It took a lot to be able to get those colors. You had to get the right whatever type plants or whatever that you did and make all of that and dyes to be able to do it. But it was an in your face. Joseph is different than all of y'all. Okay, that I will tell you is a horrible way to parent. Okay, I had to submit because I think some of us live in a fog that we think, oh no, I'm treating all of my children exactly the same. It's just that isn't possible to do all of that this way. But when you're loving your kids and how you do that, surely you wouldn't be falling into the trap that Jacob did. But I see this. I know that many parents do that, and I can tell you it won't be any different, the resentment that happens from your kids to you and what it does to the sibling rivalry than what we're going to read that happens in this story either. Yeah, you were going to say something?
Would he have worn that coat every day?
Absolutely.
Even out to take care of the sheep?
I can't tell you that he would have worn it 100% of the time, but their outer garment was something that they generally wore all the time. Now, I'm sure there were certain things they would do. It'd be a little hot. I don't know that they would always have it. I think he always had it. Whether he always wore it, I'm sure there were times like us that we don't want to wear our suit coat or something. But either way, they knew he had it. He would have worn it a lot, and he would have had it in his possession to be able to see it. Yeah. So. But that here you have that now. Now this is bad enough. Is what I was going to say. This is bad enough here, isn't it? Because the Bible already has told us he loved Rachel more and all of that, and that's now flowed into Joseph. Joseph has already got a target on his back, right? Okay, he's got a target on his back, and he done told on him. He's tattled. He's got this ornate coat. And what were you going to say?
When I was reading it earlier, it never stood out to me before, but the son says how we say it. They had been jealous of him too, because of that one lady. When he didn't marry his mom, mad that he loved him more because he was the son of the woman he loved. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, sure. Well, that's what I was saying earlier. It definitely has flowed from Rachel, and I can tell you that you can tell whenever, I say too much about my childhood, and bless your heart, you just got to sit there and take it, don't you? You can tell whenever a parent favors a spouse in your life, especially if they're a step parent kind of deal, like this situation. They didn't have any particular connection with Rachel. That wasn't their mama. But they could tell that he was getting special treatment more than they were getting. They could probably tell that Jacob may at some point may have slighted their mother. I don't know. I mean, that's pure speculation. And they would have been a little resentful. Somebody's messing with your mama too. There was a lot happening in this family that happens in our families, today. It was all this, we say family drama just got started, in the last 50 years? No, good heavens. This is in the Bible. Now, taking a look at this, I'm going, all right, Joseph, you need to understand, son. I know you're about 17 or however old he is at this particular point, 17. You need to wise up. You have a target on your back, buddy. All right? You done told on them. You're getting special treatment. Well, then Joseph has some dreams. He has some dreams. First dream that he has is that they're out there in the field and they're gathering up wheat, and you take that and you bind it together, and that's a sheaf, okay? And his dream was that they had all of their sheaves, and it doesn't say it necessarily was in the middle, but his sheaf stood upright, and all of the other 11 ones were bowing down to it. Hey, it's all right to have the dream. Maybe you need to keep that to yourself. But he's 17. He's got his coat on. He was like me, or I'm like him.
And his daddy loves him the
his daddy loved him the most? I don't know. I'm psychoanalyzing Joseph. I'm not exactly sure about all of this, but I almost get the sense that Joseph went in with his coat on. He put the coat on for this time. He put it on and he went in and tried to be so innocent. Hey, guys, I'm just telling you, I'm trying to figure out about this dream. Was that all of us, we're out in the field, and, my chief stands up and y'all's is bowing down to me. What do you think about that? Sounds pretty cool to me. And you notice what it says. They're of course going, did you just say, or is that what you're trying to say? We're going to bow down to you. But look, it says they hated him what? It didn't say they started hating him here. It said they hated him all the more. All the more because of this dream that he had. So I'm like, okay, Joseph, yes, you can smell that this is a problem. You can sense that, you feel the tension in there. He goes to sleep, he's got another dream, and this dream is worse. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars, okay, are bowing down to him. I'm like, shut up, Joseph. Shut up. Don't say it. Don't tell nobody about this. That's what I'm screaming when I'm reading this. Nope. Let me get my coat. Hey, family, they're at dinner, sitting down. I don't know. I've never only had one wife at a time. I've only ever had one wife, and I plan to only have one, period. But certainly one at a time. Okay, but this whole thing about having all these multiple wives, wow. I don't know, do you eat with this particular one of these kids at a table? I don't know how that goes. But he's sitting down at the table with at least, Rachel probably, or maybe it's I don't know which wife it was, but it had to be probably Rachel, because he says, me and your mama. And that's the sun and the moon, okay, would have been Jacob and Rachel, and the 11 stars have been the brother. And so now it's not just the brothers bowing down to him, it's the whole family bowing down to him. And that seems to frustrate even his father, who loves him a whole lot, because what does it say to us there? It says that Jacob, his father, rebuked him, right? And he's going, what do you mean we're going to bow down to you? But it says that he kept those things in mind. Think about this. How would y'all take that? Somebody come and told you that. Would you be much different than how they responded?
I would probably shrug it off and say, it's a dream. Gee whiz, it's a dream. But back then, I think they took dreams a lot more seriously than we do.
Yeah. Now I put a question in your notes, and I anticipate the answer. But does I word things right? Does the Bible say that God gave Joseph these dreams?
It does not say it.
All right. So y'all said no to that question, right? I'm going to ask you a different question. Did God give Joseph these dreams? Okay, all right. They come true, so I feel like God did give Joseph these dreams. So now when it comes to me is that I'm just not exactly sure, how much instruction was given to Joseph at this time, what he was supposed to do with these dreams. And you say, well, it all worked out. What was he supposed to, was he supposed to go tell him like this? Was Joseph because listen, you got two different ways of looking at Joseph right now. Either you have Joseph being a righteous guy who's going and doing what God wants him to do. God's given him these dreams. God's told him to go tell his family about these dreams. Okay, so he's just doing what God's told him to do. Or you have a 17-year-old brat.
I think the 17-year-old.
You have a 17-year-old brat that's going, huh, this is what's happening. This is what y'all going to do. What say you? Well, I know that. I just said that.
I would call him a brat, but
I would. I don't know what other word.
he was a 17-year-old young man that was just excited about what was going on.
So if you put that into one word, then I'm going to say it's a brat. She don't want me to label him. Yes, Jim. Mm.
You know what his daddy did wasn't right either, but it wasn't right to us, but it must have been right in God's will.
God seems to work it out. He,
I got a question for you.
oh, you know I ask questions.
One of your children are being boastful and excited about something and maybe going where they shouldn't go, wouldn't you rebuke them instead of calling them a brat? Or, I don't know.
I use words as they're defined. So if they were being a brat, I very well may call them a brat. Now, then what will happen at that time is my wife will say, "You don't call them a brat." And I'll say, "Alexa, what is a brat?" And then it'll tell me, and I said, "Wasn't that what they just did?" All right, case closed. I don't like to just call people names, no. But you asked me a direct question about it. If this kid had come in here like this, I'm not sure if I was his daddy, I would have, because he was my favorite. But if I was one of his brothers, brat would have certainly been the nicest of words I would have had for him. So yeah, I mean, I use that word to get to do that for you to get this in your head. Listen, I do believe, and this is where I want to knock Joseph down just a little bit in this whole thing. We put Joseph, generally speaking, way up here in the list of awesome Bible people, right, that's done great things. But Joseph didn't start that way. Nobody started that way. He was being a normal, this is my belief, okay? I cannot tell you that God did not go tell him to do this. I can't tell you that he didn't because it just doesn't say it. But my sense of, why did it tell us he's 17? Why did it happen there? I think that it's the same thing. All of this stuff, Joseph was getting all of this praise and this stuff, not worship, but praise and all from his father. And that did something to him that does to every kid like that. And he began to sync up. He probably was ostracized by his brothers a little bit just because they seen him as this other kid. And they were doing that. They probably pushed him away, so that pushed him even further to his father. Okay? And then he took advantage of those situations. Well, Daddy, they were doing this. And he did really have this dream. And he probably wanted to stick it to him. Were you raising your hand? Mm-hmm.
All right, so we all agree and believe that his brother thought he was a brat. Absolutely. But we also believe that God gave him a dream. So maybe he told them that God gave him that dream because he was showing them that God had favor in him. And the only way God can have favor in you is you're not as bad as people think you are. So maybe God has a prayer that I'm not as bad as y'all think I am. God is showing favor in me. So he got some good in me.
He could have been. I like that. He could have been. What he's saying is that Joseph was going there trying to advocate for himself and say, y'all think I'm all this bad, but hey, how do you explain this dream? Because they put a lot of emphasis on dreams at that point. And he may have thought this was going to curry him some favor with his brothers, but it backfired. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, maybe so. Jim?
Yeah, what I was thinking too was in verse 10, when his father asked him the question, will your mother and I and your brothers actually come down and bow down to the ground before you? I wonder what his answer was, or did he just stay silent? If he answered that, I sure would like to know what his answer was.
Why don't we have that answer? Yeah. Yeah. We'll get there and we'll be able to talk to him about it. But yeah, definitely, I think that I don't want to put too much on to Joseph because I doubt that he was the worst of the worst kid, or God wouldn't have used him in this way. But surely that he had to have been influenced. And what we need to understand is we're fixing to go through a long process of seeing a 17-year-old kid mature into a man. All right. And there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen over the course of that time to get Joseph to be the man he ended up being. This is the man that really was struggling, right? When his brothers come before him, he had a choice in that time of really, I told you so, we're getting back at them and all of that. And he's going to be torn about some of that. But he had gone through a lot. We're going to see Potiphar, his wife, and the different things that are going to take place. And it's the same situation today that we need to be sure we understand all of these biblical characters are as human as you and I. they respond in those same ways, but watch how God changes them and how they are willing to allow God to change them and to grow. And that's what defines us on how we start and how we finish. Because, yeah, God is working on every single one of us, but some people are a little more intransigent than others. And Joseph, certainly I know this, he did not end a brat if he started out to be one. Okay? He did not end. He ended very, very well. Yes? Thank you for saying that, because I almost missed something I need to say. Philip? David? 12, 14? What was it? 14, something like that. Yes. Well, I mean, by the time they get to your age, they were dead. I'm joking. There was a couple that lived a long time. Yeah. But something to Jana's point that she just said about, repeat it for me, Jana.
Something had to happen
Yeah.
to prompt them to keep that plan going forward.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about in this, you have to ask sometimes I ask the question, was this how God absolutely planned it to be? Or is this an example of God having his will done no matter what, but fixing the mess that working with some of the mess that we're making? Because, again, I don't know that God has this end goal that's never going to change, right? That all the end result's going to be there, just like in human history right now. He has the end of the story written, but he does allow us free will, and we get to swim within that fishbowl. And sometimes things are not, they certainly are not going exactly as his will, if he forced his will, because he wouldn't allow us then to have free will, because we're going to mess it up. So sometimes there's things that even happen in your life where God doesn't have to, he just has set the system up. He gives us free will. Because sometimes when I talk about free will, I got some of my friends that are a little more Calvinist than I am, and they'll say, oh, yeah, God's predetermined everything. Well, he has, but here's the best way I can put it to you. God gives you a fishbowl to swim in. That fishbowl is your free will, okay? He gets to determine, though, the size of the fishbowl. And sometimes day to day, that fishbowl is a different size. Sometimes today, you're being real stupid. I'm sorry. Tell me. I said that just because but sometimes you're not using your mental faculties to the best of your abilities. Is that better? Okay, all right. She said so. Anyway, so God says, you know what? I need that fishbowl to be a little bit smaller, okay? Because they're really going to mess things up. Then other days, you're having a little bit better day. You're communing with him a little bit more. He makes the fishbowl a little bit bigger. And you feel like, oh, I'm free. And you swim around a little bit more. But he always, what you can't do as a fish is jump out and live without the water, okay? And he determines all of that. So in this situation, I think you got to be careful. Some of it, absolutely, God has ordained what's going to happen. But throughout, you have individual free will decisions that are being made by Joseph, by his brothers, by Jacob. Some is generational stuff that's been taking place and flowing down through how Jacob is treating and how he's leading his family and all of that, and then the dynamics of the kids. And then God works through all of that in Romans 8:28, that he makes it all work out for our good, thankfully, but we make a mess of it in there. I'm just careful not to say that every dot and tittle of everything had to be that, oh, well, God must have made it to be that way. It would have been just something else. Yeah, had it not been that they were mad at him about this, something was going to lead them to get Joseph to be an Egyptian bondage over there. And that was just going to be the way that went. And so, yes, I think that I want to make sure we looked at that. So just lastly, we have 3 minutes. What practical applications can you make from what we know about Joseph's story? And now listen, so far, capitalize, underline. I'm not talking about what's going to happen next. Just with what we've looked at so far, What are practical applications that we could make to our life?
I think Joseph, God was, if he was a brat, apparently he was probably arrogant. I think God was carrying him along to prepare him for the future, which we can also learn from.
Okay? Somebody said, what did you say, Dennis? I heard you say something. Don't share your dreams. That very well may be true. Don't wear the fancy clothes that the people bought you. Okay. I go back. I want to go all the way back to Jacob in this. You've got some generational things that God allowed to happen. I don't think that if God was sitting down saying, my perfect will would be that Jacob is going to, get over on his brother Esau this way. But God was working it out that this is the way that these things had to happen, right? But I think that there are ripple effects within Jacob's life, some different sins, and we just talked about some sin. I think there's some sin. There's some ways that Jacob and Isaac, and even with Abraham and the situation with Ishmael and all that's it was a rushing of what God was looking to do. And there's ripple effects of all of these things that have gone through. And you're seeing it go into the kids. And Jacob probably, I know he wasn't, leading his family very well. Okay? And it matters about what the leader does. It matters about a father. I was with 45 pastors yesterday morning talking about some issues with foster care and things like that happening in our state. And the statistics are always up here about the fatherless homes and how the fathers, and listen, what do you think Satan's doing? He knows if you can mess up the family structure, that's the building block of society. It messes up your churches, it messes up your governments, it messes up your schools and your communities. And you can see how the enemy's beating down on these daddies, throughout some of this stuff, and very human things that are taking place, and trying to stop what God's plan was doing. And God's going, I'm not going to have any of that, Satan. We're going to work through this. But we can learn a lot about what they were doing because it's the same instincts you and I have. And we do not need to treat our families in that way. What do you think from the 11 brothers? How could they have done something? And we know what they're about to do. But I'm saying so far, what are they harboring? Resentment, hatred, jealousy. You may have some of that. And let me tell you something. You can sit there and say all day long, the other person better stop. But listen, hatred corrupts the container that it's held in. And you got to deal with that no matter what other people may be doing sometimes. Because folks, if you're waiting for the other people to always do it, it sometimes doesn't happen. You got to just forgive and let things go. Because what will happen is in a when you see a window of opportunity, you may do what's going to happen in the latter portion of this just in a different way. I mean, it happens. Stuff builds up in us, right? And what you've been seeing is over a long period of time. I mean, I think this has been, again, we know that Joseph is 17. And I think for 17 years, this has been weighing on this family. And what's in your family? What's out there that's building up? What do you see? We see it, folks. We'll go, oh, well, let's not address that right now. And then when it blows up, all of this stuff with the school shootings, we go back and look, and there's always a sign, usually somewhere. What was happening? What was going on in people's lives? Just as a caveat on that, what I can't understand is all these Facebook posts about, I think this is nuts, what we're going through today. And my wife's a teacher, and so it's important to me. But we're living in a world to where it's always a powder keg somewhere waiting to blow up. And what we ought to be trying to do as Christians is not trying to set gasoline to it or put some more stuff out there, but we ought to be trying to have a ministry of reconciliation. And I'm just not seeing somewhere in Jacob's family, where was somebody trying to have a ministry of reconciliation? All these years they could see the dynamics between the parents, the children, who was trying to reconcile, who was trying to help them come together. Whether it's God's plan or not for everything to ultimately happen that way, I think that they should have been trying to deal with the family dynamics. Jim, you had something to say in closing?
Yeah,
Yeah. In any aspect of your life, and I tell you this in closing, in my chaplain rounds that I make for my businesses, I hear from employees a lot gripes from their company about the company. We don't get paid enough. They're not doing this. I can't feed that, right? I can't, oh yeah, I know, it's just working for the man, it's horrible. That's not my job. That's not my job. Somewhere where things are that I can help them at, I listen to them, but it would be very detrimental spiritually, because they do come to me for those things, and they do see me in their pastoral role, and they're telling me these things. I got emails and text messages right now to respond to for some of these folks that I'm ministering to, and they're hurting. And yes, some of it is the company's deal, but I'm not a manager for those companies. I can't deal with that. So I'm trying to be positive and help them and say, listen, but there may be a time you have to leave, but make sure that you don't burn any bridges, and do the best you can while you're here and all of that kind of stuff. Because if we, too often, we feed bitterness. We feed that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know. Happens in our politics, happens in whether, we like in biblical stuff. Me and Daniel could have slit each other's throats today because we happen to disagree about something biblically, about things. But we'll get out there. That's not our role as Christians. Our role is to present hope, okay? And there is hope in Jesus. In this story with Joseph, if there's not another story in the Bible that you can look to see at how God is orchestrating, where they don't even know what's happening right now, years and years in advance, there's things going on. And you need to remember that in times. God knows what he's doing, and it may look bleak right now. You may not even know it, but God is preparing things right now for us, for what he knows is going to come in the future. And you can take great solace in that he cares for us, and even in times of suffering or whatever. And so life is too short for some of these things that cause us strife within our structures. And what we see happening in this family with Joseph and Jacob's family is such the same kind of things happening in our homes today, and it'll be the same. So let's get a jump on it and learn, all right, and take those practical steps to apply the word. Let's pray. Father, we thank you. We praise you, Lord. It's fun, Lord, as we take a look at your word, Father God, and we try to study it as best we can and look at it, Father, and get the principles that you would have us to get. And Lord, I just pray as we embark in this study in Joseph's life, Lord, that you will continuously show us things, Father, not just having a history lesson of Jacob's family and Joseph's family, Father, but a practical application, Lord, that is going to help us grow closer to you today. And Lord, there is so much that we can identify with, Father, so help us not to read it again with that historical perspective, but read it, Father, in a present perspective and a future application for ourselves. Lord, we thank you that you have given us your word. We thank you've given us the instructions, you've given us the case studies of the people that we can look at and learn from, Father, and what an awesome man that you raised up, Lord, in Joseph. And we're going to see that over the coming weeks. But Lord, we know that he did not start out perfect, as none of us do. And Lord, that we have hope that you can help us to grow and change us no matter where we are and what circumstance we find ourselves in right now. We thank you for grace. We thank you for mercy that you bestow upon us, Lord. As we leave this place, I pray that you will keep us all safe, Father God, and you would bring us back at the appointed time. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.